Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Esteemed Center Stage with Global Thought Leaders, a Right Source Global initiative. I am Ajuna Sharawat, Chief Anchor and Editor at Global Thought Leaders, and I will be your host today during this Center Stage interview. Global Thought Leaders is a platform where industry titans can share their experiences, thoughts, ideas, and best practices with one another and future leaders. We hope to bring together this global community of distinguished individuals by conducting these center stage interviews. Great leadership lessons benefit everyone when we can identify, nurture, and apply tricks of the trade that have proven to be successful formulae for many. In a nutshell, we seek to distill these industry leaders' multi-decadal learnings and establish a knowledge-sharing community. Today, we welcome industry veteran Rajendra Ghag to the center stage. Rajendra is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Blue Dart Express Ltd. He previously worked for HDFC Life, DHL Express, Cadburys, and Reliance Industries Limited. He has been involved in the field of human resources for over 3 decades, and he has also held the responsibility for business excellence as a Six Sigma change management leadership trainer for over a decade. Among his significant accomplishments during his tenure was the transformation of Cadbury's largest manufacturing unit from likely closure to significantly improved productivity and profitability, dubbed historic transformation in Cadburys India. During his time at HDFC Life, he was also a member of the top management team at DHL Express and a member of the executive committee. He has been the Chief Human Resource Officer at Blue Dart Express Limited for the past 3 years. Welcome, Rajendra, to center stage.
Thank you very much.
Rajendra, could you please tell us about your professional journey, highlighting the important moments in your career?
Sure. Thanks, Ajuna, for providing this platform and opportunity. I think I'm equally privileged and happy because I always believe that these interactions are learning opportunities for everyone, correct? Whether you are a speaker or an interviewer. I started long time back. Now, I mean, if I had to just go back and then say 4 decades, correct? But when you start the full-time employment way back in 1983, just a graduate out of the college, and you just got into employment. I was just reading an article yesterday. Does the luck really has something to play with? Let's say somebody's career. And there is a debate in that article of Times of India. So I, in fact, resonate to that, saying that while you have to have what it takes to actually get into the career, but in certain times, I think your luck also, let's say, supports you a bit, correct? But not only luck, by the way. So way back in 1983, we started with the humble, let's say, as an officer in a company called CHRO. Basis my graduation, so to say. But again, as I said, with the maybe an opportunity I got to work with the top man, of that company as the production planning, officer, correct? And from there, the journey started. In fact, to actually work on the planning area of the operations and the production, correct, of such a big company called CHRO then. And you work for the top man in the manufacturing, you get to know many things at that young age, And after this opportunity, for anyone for that matter, correct, if you get an opportunity, how do you leverage on that is very important. And the hindsight, I can now say, yeah. So I think I could probably then, leverage on what I got, and got into this, first 6 years, in fact, within which I was sponsored for my, MBA law by the company, saying that, you have a great future ahead. So right in 80s, I would probably then say that the management had that outlook to actually, develop talent, correct? And I was one of the beneficiaries of that. So that's the starting point, yeah. And then the journey started with, being a kind of a top 5 in the Pune University in my master's. a law graduate, general law. Then the journey started with the professional HR, let's say career. Next in Sandoz in Mumbai. So I was again based at the Colset factory of Sandoz, again a huge factory then, which was named later on as Novartis. Yeah. Then with that, of course, in those eras, I don't know, some of you know that we used to have a lot of these industry relations issues, correct? And being in the manufacturing, I got to get involved into that. And then actually, done a number of things like, you name it as settlements, strikes, lockouts, correct? Those experiences, correct, just to progress the companies. So again, in the hindsight, I can say that I was provided with opportunities, a lot of tasks, correct? Let's say you either settle between the two union rivalries, you then, help management to demerge the company between Sandoz and Color Came, so to say, Clariant. Then you then have task of actually, let's say, doing the change management in the demerged company. Now, those are the terms, if you really ask today, I think a lot of senior executives really do. But at the manufacturing, I was blessed with those opportunities, though it wasn't easy, I mean, to be very honest, yeah. But you had to go through that, correct? It was a learning opportunity. And then the journey continued with, then all the blue chip companies that I had in my mind in terms of, getting experiences. So got into polyolefins, which was Motilal Group. Polyolefin, again, let's say we got merged into NoSil. In fact, some of these companies, I'm sure, you must have heard the names, correct? The polyolefins, the NoSils, and then, of course, NoSil was taken over by Reliance. And if you look at my journey, I think I moved up with these, companies. Either I was poached and, of course, included in the new company. So we, again, in the polyolefins and NoSil, we merged the company, merged the factory. In fact, I've lifted the fence between the two big factories, correct? There. So why I'm saying all of these, because, you will see that all of these, while they are appearing like an item of change, but it has a huge change management, correct? In terms of making people accept those changes at a senior level, at a middle level, at a junior level, and not easy, with unions being there, correct? So I think polyolefins became NoSil. NoSil then was taken over by Ambani Group, then, as Reliance. So I became part of the Reliance management. Yeah. And, we became, again, a big entity there as entire Thane Bellapur belt, if you look at half of it, at least with the Reliance now. So I would say that I was one of the first, let's say, management persons to actually got involved into this whole, merging two companies, then, getting a license for current DAKC, what we have it as there, correct? From a factory. So all those changes really, kind of made me learn a lot, by the way. And everything was about transition. Everything was about change management. Yeah. And you can think about it, what it must have been. But I mean, God's grace, I think with my efforts, with our efforts, with the team actually really supporting, it really went on, let's say, to become a good, let's say, journey in my life, career life. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So and after that, if you look at, that's my first half, I would say,
right.
Of about 20 years. And the second half, then actually I got into Cadburys again for one more task, correct? From Reliance to Cadburys. Again, Thane factory was one of the biggest in the, Cadbury portfolio. And they wanted to take a call either to shut the factory or keep it, let's say, running for next maybe 10, 15 years. I was given a task again saying that, can you really do that? There's a complete mandate was given to me. And again, I think there was a success story with the transformation, saying that the company the factory which did not receive investment even of a rupee, got investment then in 1998 of about 25 crores. And we modernized the factory. Again, not to say that, by exiting number of employees, but really made good for them in terms of their, voluntary retirement, made sure that they actually and their families were taken care of. And, I can tell you that in that transition, while the productivity went to fourfold, the manpower came down almost, let's say by 50% or more. Now, again, one might say that, you went on just, right sizing and downsizing and stuff like that, but it was a business requirement. But as an HR person, as a management person, including, I think, the top people, if you are able to balance between the two entities, correct? I mean, those who get impacted and those who want impact to actually come in, then I think you're done your job in terms of the real management, correct? So I think that was the Cadbury story. And then if you see the next 20 years, almost 20 years in my corporate life as, head of HR, number 2 in HR, then I became business excellence head in, DHL to start with, and then went with that experience to HDFC Life as a financial industry. 10 years there, brought in both, HR concepts and, business excellence concept, in that company right from the scratch. And me and my then MD, who's now CEO of Axis Bank, Mr. Amitabh Chaudhary, that I must mention. I think we too, along with the other, team members, we really have, taken HDFC Life to the, kind of the story that they have today, correct? I'm part of that. Not that I was alone doing that, but as a team, as a part of the team, we really pushed the baton to, make it an excellent financial industry, which is one of the top insurance companies now. And from there, again, having worked in DHL earlier, when I was in DHL between 2003 and 2009, we took maximum stake in Blue Dart then. Blue Dart is a domestic express logistic company. And DHL, of course, being international express, they wanted to invest in India, apart from, what they already had. So Blue Dart was found to be a good brand, local brand, and actually really successful. So we invested 75% stake there, correct? DHL normally, paints the town yellow moment they take over the companies. But in Blue Dart's case, I think because it was a very strong brand, very successful, we did not really do that then. So we allowed Blue Dart to actually run an independent, company, as an independent company, correct, with the management there. And naturally, as an investment, correct, if you get your ROIs, you should be okay with that, correct? But now I think, after about 13 to 15 years, I think I was, again, 10 years in HDFC Life. Some of these Blue Dart senior management and DHL senior management, they knew me. And probably they got to know that Raj could be, possibly thinking out of HDFC Life because my CEO left. So I was asked. So I said, yeah, if any other company that I can work with, probably DHL Group again, correct? So this Blue Dart, I think, position was there vacant. And I just, got plugged in, by the way, because the current MD, was kind of my colleague friend then, correct? Because we worked together as, not as the colleague in the same company, but colleague in the same group, correct? Colleague in the same group. So I think that really helped. And he was looking for someone because he got into an MD's position. I must tell you this story. The current MD of Blue Dart is one of the first employees of the company, 37 years back. Yeah. And gem of a person, a huge leader, a huge, human being. I think he wanted someone to actually kind of, be with him at a little mature level. And that's where I came in. I guess that's what I think his requirement was. And last 3 years, I think, the numbers can speak. I think what we've done in this company in terms of the culture building, of course, they were already good, correct? But the culture building, taking people along, changing things, correct? Because if you look at the logistic industry, today is one of the sought after. And I think pandemic really proved that out of all of the industries, I think one industry which really stood tall and also did well is the logistic industry worldwide. We did extremely well, exceedingly well in last about 3 years' time. Again, during the pandemic, we have about 13,000 plus on-roll employees, another 30,000 off-roll employees. So if you look at, 45,000 employees company, and in the pandemic, we had to do a lot of, let's say, interventions to make sure that we really stand, tall and actually continue doing what we do, And we help nation, but we help people around, correct, being in that industry. We kind of, help government to get into, early imports of PPEs, medical equipments, medicines, and all those, correct? Because we have our own planes flying, domestically to start with, but we also flew, beyond India to Hong Kong, to China, and other countries to get the initial, medical equipments, PPEs, which was actually, dire need, correct? So I think we worked with government, and that's why I think, we recognized by the, kind of civil aviation industry that Blue Dart has really helped during that pandemic times. At the same time, I think we worked on our people. So, Arjuna, then people were worried about, a lot of these employees going back to their native places, correct? And we were the first company, one of the first companies to actually get our 95% workforce back in the May of that first wave, and others were struggling. So only, I think, few days, maybe about 3 weeks in April, we suffered like any other, but we never had our lights, shut in any of the, kind of offices that we have across the country, 2,500 of them. So that's, I think, kind of USP that we have and we had during the pandemic. And I would say the result that we got in the business, correct, both in terms of top line, bottom line, employee engagement, correct, employee morale and motivation, I think world class. I think people can see that on the data, correct? The number, it's all published now. And we are a listed company in India. We are a listed company in India. So I think it's all there on the websites, correct? What I'm saying. So that's my journey in nutshell. I don't know whether it's a nutshell, but I think, yeah, I felt I think I should be talking about that to start with. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was very, very inspiring to listen, to get to know about your journey, and also the fact that the Blue Dart and logistics sector stood tall, facing all the challenges during the COVID times.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Amazing. You have worked with such significantly large organizations. Please share with us your top 3 learnings on both HR and business excellence front.
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I think, how do we make every problem, if it is a problem, into an opportunity? That's my first learning. In fact, if I now in the hindsight turn back and look at my 40 years of work, and if I ask my family as well, because ultimately you're a family person, correct? I got married in 1990, by the way. So I think in the hindsight, if I look back, I would say there were a lot of issues and problems if I would have, let's say, taken them as a problem, correct? But I think one thing really helped me with my outlook towards those problems, that every problem gave me an opportunity. And I grabbed that, correct? I didn't really, again, in the hindsight, I can speak about it because otherwise, it would appear like a posting, correct? But since I've experienced that, I can speak about it. Yeah. So I think every problem that came in, I mean, think of, those great union leaders, by the way. I can name those, few people like, Mr. Khanolkar, Samant, Ganesh Naik, and all of those are very, very, eminent union leaders of the big organizations, correct? Now to deal with them at that level, correct, and get it successfully, let's say, agreed to, correct, some of the organization's requirement was a Herculean task, correct? So you had a lot of problems, let's say, created by a local, vested interest and, employees with the vested interest, correct, politically motivated. How do you manage all of this without really pushing them back, with, let's say, unprofessional way, correct? I think that's not the way. And I always tell people, in fact, I think some of these leaders have told me in person, saying that, you know what, Raj, if you as a management personnel, work as a management personnel, but be professional and considerate, there are no issues which can't be solved, correct? So, I mean, and mark my words, I think many of us then probably, maybe there were some reasons, sometimes, shirked away to, let's say, do our real managerial role. Yeah. If you are, appointed as a manager or managerial personnel, you have to act as a managerial personnel, correct? You might actually face difficulties, but how do you still stand up as a professional? And then the organization supports you. I think you have to guide the organization, correct? You are in HR position. So the line managers might not know these nuances, correct? So how do you do that? So the first learning is, how do you actually take every problem, in a positive way and actually convert that into an opportunity? And you actually become a better successful person on that issue the next time. That is the first one. Okay. The second one is, you can't work alone. Yeah. Whatever it may be, it may be, individual contributor, or maybe you are a domain expert, correct? You're an intelligent person with, technology knowledge or whatever, correct? Even in the current day and age. I don't think anyone in any industry can work as an individual contributor to get the organization success or your team success, correct? Or your, let's say, objective successful. I think you have to work with people, yeah, and take them along. And particularly when you become a leader, I think you can't really do things without taking people along, correct? I always make a kind of a statement in any of the forum that I go to. It is not a big deal that you get people to work for you when you instruct them to work for you. But it is a big deal when you actually make them to work for you without instructing, isn't it? So now again, it sounds like a philosophical, but I think I'm telling you, without this, let's say statements, or the second one, you can't really have the engaged workforce or the motivated workforce. They'll work for you for some while because they believe that you are an authority and you are instructed them to work. But will they really work for you from their heart, correct? By heart. Yeah. So I think that needs to be checked again by each of the leaders is my second learning, because you might get successful in a shorter run if you are lucky to an extent, but you can't really be successful continuously or in the long run unless you really have people working for you, from their heart, correct? And when I'm saying this, I think what it really means is that you work along with them in creating that kind of camaraderie, the trust. These are big words, by the way. Not people. I think people sometimes use them very, very freely. But the camaraderie, trust, confidence, correct, taking people along are big words in the organization. And I can actually, confidently tell you, Arjuna, even today, many technology companies, many companies with deep pockets of investment, they're struggling. They're struggling because of these things are not there in their organization, and leaders are struggling there. I can tell you that. So that's the second learning. If I have to say that you can't work alone, you have to have a motivated team working along with you. And that motivated word is very important. Underwrite that kind of word. Yeah, I'll speak about that when time permits. If time permits. And the third one, you have to be relevant for the day and the time that you are in. Yeah. So I spoke to you about 80s and 90s, correct? So I come from that, let's say, school, so to say. People might say I'm a baby boomer or, Gen Z or whatever, correct? But if you don't sharpen your saws for the time that you are in today, correct? I'm in 2022. If I keep, let's say, talking about my past and success stories in the past, I don't think I'll be, successful today, correct? I need to unlearn that. I need to probably, let's say, have that experience at the back of my mind, but sharpen my saw for the day. And that's why I said when we started this conversation that I will learn a lot from your questions too. Yeah. So I think that is the third learning that I would actually, say to anyone, including my, let's say, children now, they're growing up. So I always tell them that, are you relevant for today? You might have a degree or two, correct? But that is just a kind of document in terms of the qualification. But are you really educated for today? Now, today meaning not only in your company or your organization, correct? Because your organization is also, let's say, faced with the ecosystem that you are working in, correct? I mean, look at pandemic. How many companies really, stood firm? How many companies really, changed very quickly and, did what they're supposed to do, and then shown in the business numbers that really they are, they're able to actually, stand up in the adverse situation. So I think these three, if you were to ask me three, I think these are my top three, learnings, and if I say suggestions and advices to be given to anyone, correct? And the last one I think reiterate a lot, because I said, last one is very, very important because you are in a different industry, a different domain. Things are changing and changing very fast today, correct? Irrespective which industry you are in. So how do you adapt to these changing things, correct? So then, it I think talks about your, let's say, critical thinking, correct? Because thinking is again a word used by many very, very loosely, correct? But your critical thinking for the current day or current time or relevant times, correct, is very, very important. So people say, what do we mean by critical thinking? I said critical thinking in the sense, let's say, today, if I'm supposed to, let's say, speak to millennials, correct? Today, if I'm supposed to speak about technology, am I, first of all, let's say, I did not be master, correct? There are many masters who can actually be hired, correct? But are you able to make sense and ask incisive questions if you are leading the organization or leading the department to those who actually are able to contribute, so that they know, I think this gentleman, needs I think, this information because he knows what he's actually asking for and for why. But let's say if you don't sharpen your saws, you'll not be able to ask these questions to even the younger, let's say millennials, correct, who are technology savvy and of course with the new, degrees from their B schools and so on and so forth. So how do you sharpen this saw? And that's why I don't believe in this philosophy. It was there in between, but now nobody speaks about it, saying that the old school people can't lead the organizations and the new CEOs at a young age, can manage better, correct? But many companies are now saying it's a mix of two, correct? You have the experience of the old schools and the agility of a new school with the technology background, a technology, correct, domain. I think combination of these two will be a lethal combination for any company to be successful in buying.
Right, absolutely right. Great to know about the 3 learnings. And the last one, thanks for reminding us that we are supposed to quickly adapt and be relevant in today's times, and which is like so fastly changing. You blink and it's something different.
Absolutely.
Available.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Rajendra, in your opinion, what is the significance of incorporating business excellence into an organization? What are significant changes it has brought about in the organizations which you have worked for?
I think it's not only in the business organizations. I think business excellence, I know because we are talking about businesses, it's called business excellence, correct? Otherwise, excellence is a word. And, Arjuna, in fact, just to give you a practical, example, when we started this call, it is a virtual call, correct? So we talked about the settings and, how I think the image should look and, how the reflection should not come in. I'm just giving you the live example.
Right, right.
What did we do? I think you made sure that I think this call should actually be done in an excellent way, correct? It should be clear, elegant, for the recipient or participant to observe and listen, correct? Now, why did we do that? It is actually, you made sure that the excellence is there while we actually speak today as well, correct?
Right.
So if you add the prefix of business to this word, it actually applies everywhere. It applies to life as well, by the way, in my view.
Yeah.
And that's why when I used to train, this so-called Six Sigma and business excellence, to many directors across South Asia and beyond as well, I always give them the practical life experience, correct? Those are examples, so to say. How you actually, if you are, focusing on excellence, how you'll benefit in your day-to-day life as well. So if you ask me from a business excellence point of view, right from the first company to what I'm working today, Blue Dart, correct? I think without business excellence, we have a complete organization excellence at the department, correct? With number of people there who are trained, by the way. DHL globally has something called a program called First Choice. Okay, it is nothing but the business excellence. And across the globe, into 20 plus countries, we have these similar concepts, everywhere. Now, it's not a template, by the way. It's actually a thinking, correct? It's a structured thinking of doing things, correct? It's planning, it's organizing, it's actually making the processes, kind of very methodically done, correct? There are SOP, there are manual, they are reviewed. The review mechanism is actually, kind of brought in, correct? So all of these, I think as a top person or the CEO, the he or she would be really, really, getting help from to actually manage the day-to-day businesses and of course business numbers, by the way, the profits and revenue and stuff like that. So I would say business excellence is one of the must-haves. It's not a choice, anymore. People might call it in a different way. Somebody might call it as a quality assurance, quality control, but that's also an excellence, correct? Because what you're trying to see and do is make sure that your quality is as promised, to customers in terms of your product and services, correct? So I would reiterate by saying that business excellence is no more choice for any business, in the world. Yeah. So to be very specific in our organization, the way that I work, let's say I talk about, let's say last 3, so to say, let's say DHL Express, HDFC Life, and now Blue Dart, correct? So what are we doing, by the way, in an existing organization? You can probably ask this question, Arjuna, for your field as well. When you are working in an existing organization, correct? And if there is an issue coming in, what most, I think, let's say leaders do, they problem solve, isn't it? While we might not say that I'm solving a problem, but you're working on a day-to-day issues to be sorted out, of which the decisions can be taken, correct, to help business. Now, this problem solving is again one of the important leadership requirements. Yeah, to have a methodical way of solving problem so that it can get solved for longer time, a sustained basis, correct? If not forever. Otherwise, what happens, because we don't really do a methodical problem solving, it occurs again. It occurs again. And it actually creates a huge waste in the system, a loss of profitability. I can talk to you in quantified numbers. Why? Because if you do it a short-term kind of, let's say thinking and have a short-term solution to the problem without getting into the methods, then what will you do? All of these re's, correct? They revisit, they redo, rework, repair, repay. And each of these re's is nothing but the waste of time and money, correct? So what does it mean? So it means that, instead of spending, let's say, half an hour more or maybe a day more for planning and thinking and organizing, you just want to jump into the solution, but you don't really solve anything. Correct?
Actually, the burden is increased.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And in the excellence, we say, correct, the excellence gurus, they say that, let's say, arrest the problem at the birth of the problem. Correct? But how will you arrest that if you don't know where is the birth, where is the root cause, correct? So this is called, in a nutshell, as a methodical thinking or structured thinking, or you may call it as a business excellence, correct? So I think this is the must-have, in my opinion. It's not a choice anymore for any leader.
Absolutely. Rajendra, what do you see as the major challenges that the Industrial Revolution 4.0 will bring? How have you prepared for these challenges?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And of course, not that we are, kind of safely covered from all angles. So we are also worried, to be very honest, in Blue Dart or maybe otherwise. But we are constantly thinking to not just get worried, but also, try and come up with whatever best possible solution with the capability that you have as a management and the leadership, correct? So I think 4.0, if you ask me, it's already started, correct? It's not going to come or what, correct? So what are the ingredients of 4.0 in my opinion? I think the VUCA word, abbreviation that we all hear, the VUCA word, yeah, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, correct? This is there for, at least for last few years that I'm hearing, correct? Which is going to be there all the time, yeah. So it was pandemic, let's say last 3 years. Maybe we're talking about the geopolitical crisis currently in the West, correct? We will talk about the global warming continuously for next at least a decade, if not more, a couple of decades, correct? And that's why if you look at the ESG is being talked about a lot. But if you read yesterday's, ET, it talks about the leaders with the ESG understanding will have more value in terms of even the leadership market, correct? The job market at the CEO and CXO level. Now, all of these is Industry 4.0. I think people are committing today, including the governments and the organizations, saying that we will become carbon neutral by, let's say, 2050, 2030, 2070, as the case may be, correct? Now they're committing. Just to tell you, in fact, it's a published statement, so I can make it here. DHL Group is, spending billions of euros. I mean, they're committing today to become, carbon neutral, by, let's say, 2050. And they're committing the numbers today on record because they're published companies in the world, right? Now, this is the new, let's say, dynamic of 4.0. Then are you prepared as the leadership, as the organizations, management to handle that? My view, not many now, but they are getting there, correct? And that's why if you look at, I think this new, let's say, wave of learning, unlearning and learning at our level, that how do you actually get prepared for ESG? Just to tell you, as we speak, I was just preparing for social audit in my organization. Yeah. Now audits we heard, correct? Now this is going to be a social audit. Now social audit is part of ESG, framework. So, and these things will also help countries and governments and the nation and the world as a whole to become good, correct? So I think my view is that, the industry 4.0 is already started with, there are 4 to 5 ingredients. One is the, how do you actually be a sustainable organization, sustainable business? So sustainability, and what does that mean? I think people need to know that, correct? ESG is one, let's say, framework. Technology is going to become a kind of, backbone. Yeah. While some people might say that, no, we can't really afford at this point in time. But again, if you look at, even the normal human being in the countries can't live without the technology. You and me have not gone to banks for many months and years, correct? And we do everything on mobile phones. At times, people say it is risky, but if you take care, I think it is very convenient, correct? So convenience, yeah. And those two things will actually also change the consumerism, in my view. The requirements of consumers will keep changing drastically because those other things are available, correct? And accordingly, I think the companies, the organizations have to also change their strategy, correct? Again, it's not one size fit all. Different industries will have to have different strategies, yeah. And then to do all of this, again, as I said, correct, you will have to always ask yourself a question for the relevant times, which is now. Do you have the engaged and motivated workforce? Right. I personally don't believe that we will have the robots everywhere, and you don't have to worry about the human being being motivated. I don't believe in that. Right. So I think every organizations, whether it was in 80s or 90s or now in 2022 or going forward, irrespective, will have to focus on talent, leadership, and the engagement and motivation of the employees, period. Yeah. So again, to summarize, I think 4.0 ingredients, I think a new ecosystem with things like ESG, carbon neutralization, sustainability, I think all in one. Technology as a backbone, yeah. And third and most important, do you have the leadership and management with that kind of focus, correct? Because you have to do a lot of unlearning and learning, and with speed, correct? You probably don't have time to, let's say, take about few years to actually get there. You have to do quickly. And the fifth, all of this should result into you having, continuously motivated and engaged workforce to deliver your top line and bottom line. Ultimately, it's a business, correct? So it has to actually deliver numbers.
Absolutely. Very beautifully answered.
Thank you.
Rajendra, we would like to hear your thoughts as a corporate governance expert on how this knowledge will help you and others like you deal with board level challenges in the future.
Sure. I think though I'm not expert, yet in the board level, but I think I was again, let's say, fortunate enough to witness the board proceeding, being there for 9 years in HDFC Life. I was permanently invited to the board, as the HR head, and I've seen, let's say, the most senior board, which is HDFC Limited or HDFC Life, correct, to function. And I would say, I think, it was there earlier as well, and even in today, in fact, it is a little more, correct, in terms of the responsibility on the directors, the board of directors, correct? Because the board is a kind of bridge between the stakeholders, including the shareholders, the stakeholders, and the company, correct, the management. Because the management handles day-to-day stuff, we are all part of the management, and there is a board. Of course, there are full-time directors who are at times or many times part of the management as well. But today, the governance requires that you have a lot of independent directors as well, correct? And that word independence, I think it says it a lot, because they actually want at the senior most level, experienced personnel, including women in the board, to actually bring in that outside in perspective and knowledge to to ensure that the business of the organization is managed in a professional and in a governance way, correct, compliant way. So I think this is very important, and again, you heard me earlier saying that one of the ingredients for the 4.0 is ESG, correct? Which is environment, social, and governance.
Yes.
So if you look at the environment part, if you don't really govern well, we are all going to actually have problem as the community, correct, as the human beings.
Yes.
Yeah. And social is in between. But if you do not really take care of the social aspects of the people, because ultimately who's doing all of this? It's people,
Yes.
correct?
And it's done for the people.
People. So then you probably get into a situation when you will not be able to understand as to why things are not happening. So are you really taking care of, let's say, under social, what all things come in? Comply with it, don't have child labor, don't force anyone to function, correct? Respect their dignity, respect, let's say, the orientation that they have now. Because in India, we're still talking about gender, correct? But the world is going beyond that, correct? And that is going to come and bite you if you are not prepared for it. Because you are saying that you're a developing country and now getting into a developed stage, then you better, get with all of this together. You can't say, oh, Indian culture is a little different, so I think that's the Western thing. But it will come very fast, in India. And then you have to be ready for that, correct? So that's the social part of it. And then G is an enabling engine, in my view, which I think the board of directors, the independent directors, would play a critical role, even now, better now, to ensure that S and E is really, actually taken care of and taken to the next level, is my way of explaining the ESG. And I think the G part is fundamental, correct? And that's why a lot of boards are now becoming very critical of things, which is put up to them during the meetings, is my view. And which is good for the business, good for the organization, good for the country as a whole.
Yeah. Again, thank you for this beautiful lesson.
Pleasure.
As you know, we have been building the Global Thought Leaders community for cross-pollination of knowledge and a community of global directors for having a better governance in the country. What are your thoughts on these initiatives?
I think this is good. I heard somewhere, I'm yet to look at the data, that across the corporate world, we have, let's say, tens and 20,000s of vacancies in the board, correct? That's what I've heard. I'm yet to confirm this with the data. But if that is true, which means there is a huge work required to be done by a country as a whole, not by one or two of us, correct? That first of all, you get such kind of, thought leaders in place. Because I always believe in this philosophy, my management people knows that. I always say, first provide for it, and then make sure that it works for you, correct? But if you don't really take efforts in providing for it, you won't know whether it is quality or not, correct? It's absent. So I think provision of these, let's say, thought leaders to start with, which is what I think the Right Source is doing very, very correctly. And I'm very happy about that initiative, that we need to have an institute, or maybe few of them, to make sure that this is enabled and actually help the government to actually get them, help corporations to get them, correct? Because these kind of sessions would actually then also put pressure on people who are hoping to become, let's say, IDs and, part of the directorship, to ask themselves a question: are you equipped to handle this, correct? Yeah. That's why I think this is just, in my view, a drop in the ocean. I think we require a lot of work in this area to make most corporates successful. Because a lot of, let's say, entrepreneurs have ambition to actually, all the unicorns, correct, the startups, correct. When they become big, it becomes very difficult to handle, correct, from a governance, compliance, and management point of view. Then you require these thought leaders to come in and actually support them in, managing those big enterprises. So that's my view.
Thank you for your valuable feedback. Rajendra, that was an excellent, valuable, enlightening conversation with you. Your insights will, I'm confident, inspire the next generation of leaders. We wish you all the best in future endeavors. Thank you for joining us on today's call with Global Thought Leaders. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Arjuna. It was a learning. In fact, from all your questions, I've learned a lot. So work on that. And I think, I continue to learn and happy to be part of this session, sir. Yeah.
And yes, I will keep this in mind. This what you had highlighted, that it's easy to get people to work for you when you give instructions, but to get motivated people working for you without instructions is your treasure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then you don't have to worry, because otherwise people keep worrying at the back of their mind, saying that, when you are on leave, is something happening there or no? Because not sure,
Right.
correct? Because you instructed.
Right.
But you
Right.
don't know about your people's, let's say, camaraderie inside, correct? Or maybe thinking inside. Not that you're going to be perfect. Nobody would know 100%. But at least I would say if you're good, you're able to, be confident at about 90-95%.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Arjuna. Thank you very much for providing this platform and opportunity. I'm sure, we will have many more conversations, going forward.
Sure.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.